very pleased to be here to talk to you about our zinc business unit today. I was recently at LME Week in London, and zinc was described as the darling commodity for the next 2 years. So that's a story that I haven't heard for quite some time in the zinc business unit. Andrew talked about the significant mine closures that are coming up. In Canada, Brunswick, Perseverance have closed this year. Century's on the horizon, as is Lachine. So there's lots of optimism about zinc markets going forward. So first I want to talk about making a difference, and this particularly relates to our zinc and health program. I've spoken about this earlier and you've probably seen material on it before, but just to remind you, there's some 2 billion people worldwide that do not get enough zinc in their diets. This manifests itself in health-related problems with this segment of the population. Every year, it's estimated there's 450,000 children to die because of zinc deficiency. So Teck has been a facilitator or a catalyst in bringing together different groups to help cure this problem. And in particular, we've ventured with different partnerships. One to name here is UNICEF, but one that's quite exciting that's we'll start to see some results over the upcoming years is with BASF, and it's a food fortification partnership. So BASF, being a large chemical company, has developed technology to fortify staple food products like flour. So these products will be distributed in countries that have a zinc deficiency, and this is regulated by the governments of those countries, so that there's a mandated fortification program for staple food products, and the opportunities there are a lot larger than in trying to interject one by one, which is the case now, where we're with UNICEF trying to convince families to put zinc in their food diets on an individual basis. So food fortification has the potential to reach a lot more people and tackle this problem a lot quicker than has been done in the past. Turning to another growth area, not to use a pun here, but is zinc in fertilizers. And this chart shows the growth in zinc in fertilizers in the 3 key countries that have been focused on to date, India, China, and Brazil. The market potential here is quite large. It's 500,000 tons per year. As you can see on this chart, their growth has they've achieved about 120,000 tons per year so far in these 3 countries. The total demand worldwide for zinc and fertilizer could be as much as 1 million tons. Other market opportunities for zinc is to increase the use of zinc in galvanizing, and this is largely done through regulations and building standards. And we can see that in North America with the deterioration of our concrete infrastructure. There's a perfect example here in Toronto, the Gardiner Expressway that many of you drive under every day. The rebar in there was not protected with anything, and now we can see the outcome of that 40 or 50 years later. So galvanizing of rebar, galvanizing of infrastructure, this is a big opportunity worldwide, particularly in developing nations, to ensure that some sort of rust protection is built into the regulations of those countries. I want to talk first briefly about our assets. Red Dog, we've labeled it here as a world-class mine. Sometimes world-class is overused, but in the case of Red Dog, I think it's not just a world-class mine, it's an incredible resource in a very unique setting, and with a particularly unique partnership with NANA, the native corporation that owns the resource in the area. So we've been operating here for more than 20 years. Our 25th anniversary is coming up in a year. It's been an incredibly successful operation, and it's got many years to go in the future. Just a production profile from Red Dog over the last number of years and our forecast for 2013. As you can see, zinc production has been falling off as we move from the very rich main pit with grades in the mid or the low 20s for zinc, 22, 23, to a Cullick pit, where the average grade is 15%, but it starts at 18 and transitions over time. We've been able to offset some of the declining grade with increasing throughput, and so you can see that the zinc production hasn't fallen off quite as dramatically as the grade might suggest. The Red Dog district is really quite a unique district. It's one of those amazing lead zinc belts that the exploration potential is still quite immense. And as you can see, we've been doing a lot of exploration activity both near the mine and away from the mine over the last number of years. And we've firmed up the Kanayak resource, which is adjacent to the main pit at Red Dog. We're working on the Palak resource, which is underneath the Kullik at Red Dog. It would likely be an underground operation. We've got targets in the lighter blue area represents the state-owned land that we have mineral rights on that we're exploring right now. A small mine located just south of Trail called Ponderay. It's been closed since 2009 when zinc prices dipped during the global financial crisis, and we're preparing for a potential restart there. So we've been doing exploration work in the area, trying to firm up a reserve of at least 5 years in front of us. Underground mines are very difficult to get more than 4 or 5 years of reserves just because of the nature of the drilling. It's about 2,000 feet deep, so a 20-foot seam 2,000 feet deep is not effective to explore from surface. So our technique there is to drift out ahead and drill and develop the reserves that way. But the expectation is there could be a much larger resource that we're trying to identify. So you can see where Ponderay is located relative to Trail. It's a strategic location. It's got economics that help. The case for Ponderay are the proximity to Trail in terms of distribution cost versus other smelters in the world. It's also a very clean concentrate, and it also has some germanium credits that would benefit the Trail operation. And so you can see the scale of the drilling here we've done over the last couple of years. We're getting ourselves in a position where we could potentially restart. The mine is capable of doing about 45,000 tons of zinc metal a year. Earlier, Dale spoke about antimina and the byproduct credits of zinc. This graph shows it quite clearly. Zinc is a material product of antimina, and in some years it's actually the most significant product in antimina, at least in terms of volume. As you can see here, antimina produces, plus or minus around 200,000 tons of zinc a year. Our share, 22.5% of that. Just a brief note on Trail. Don described it as winning, the Trail community is winning the award for one of the communities in bloom for a couple of years now. And you can see the location of the infrastructure. The smelter was started in 1896, and the community was built around the smelter. So we're not, it's probably our tightest community in terms of community relations with any operation. Trail's no longer in the preferred location. It's not on tidewater in terms of accessing concentrates in the world. And so economics are largely driven by low power and the ability to create value out of the byproducts. So we have our own 2/3 own Juanita Dam that supplies all the power, very low cost power, which is about half the cost of operating a smelter. And we have quite a highly developed ability to recover many of the byproducts that are contained in the concentrate, and particularly indium and germanium. I just want to speak briefly about our exploration and development of all future zinc properties. Of course, we talked already about the Red Dog Belt. It's probably one of the better belts in the world that we're doing a lot of exploration on. In BC, we have the Cirque District that we recently started drilling this past summer. It's got great exploration potential as well. It's another SEDEX deposit. In addition to that, we have exploration programs in Ireland, in Australia, in the Carpentaria Belt with large SEDEX deposits there. This next slide will just illustrate some of the intersections we achieved in the northern Carpentaria near Dugald River, or MacArthur River, excuse me. This is, you can see the scale here. It's over about a kilometer, a bit more than a kilometer. We have intersections in the mid double-digit teens for lead and zinc combined, 10 to 12 meter thickness. Typical of this sort of region. And these results were released because we partner with a company called Rocks there, so it's material to them to release the results. Normally we wouldn't have released these results. And that's the presentation on zinc, and I'm ready for questions if there are any.
Great, thanks very much, Rob. Any questions on zinc business? Alan?
I just have a quick question on Pend d'Oreille. You guys have done a lot of drilling there in 2012 and 2013. Looks like over 75,000 meters. Could we get a resource update for that mine in the next AIF? And is some of the stuff you're seeing as you're drilling now consistent with grades that you've seen at the mine in the past? And just to follow on with that, you mentioned a restart. How quickly could that mine restart? I understand it operated only 4 years ago, so I imagine most of the infrastructure is still in place. Could that be a 6-month, 12-month process?
Okay, I think the first couple of questions are around the resource. We're hoping to publish a new resource for this next AIF. In general terms, without getting into specifics, the intersections we're getting underground are consistent with the grades and the intersections that we experienced in the past. So the similar grades and similar thicknesses. Our knowledge of the regional geology is enhanced there. We have done larger scale studies involving exploration geologists from our home office that help the site, and open their eyes up to what's possible in the region. So I think there's still some upside in the region, but that's yet to be proven. As far as the condition of the operation is in, we have kept it on care and maintenance. The mine has been kept dry, so we didn't let the mine flood. So this is a significant head start to restarting the operation. If you let the mine flood, then the condition of all the underground equipment, hoists, and those sort of things would be unknown. So as we've been doing these underground exploration programs, we've kept the mine dry. The largest deterioration that we have there, interestingly enough, and given that I'm looking after zinc, I'm not sure how this happened, but the ground support we use there, it's usually temporary. It only lasts a year or two, so there was no corrosion protection on it. So that a lot of that ground support would have to be replaced, the screening on the back. And that's probably the largest delay to getting the operation restarted.